Leader of opposition Congress MP Rahul Gandhi has again sparked a political storm by reviving his dead economy attack, this time linking it to Trump's tariffs on Indian textiles. Sharing a video on social media, Rahul Gandhi lashed out at the Prime Minister and said people in India are hit hard by the tariffs, and then repeated his dead economy taunt. The BJP is hit back, rejecting these claims. We'll first get you this detailed report of what Rahul Gandhi said and the counter.
Congress leader Rahul Gandhi has revived his controversial dead economy attack, this time targeting the impact of steep US tariffs on Indian textiles. Flagging 50% US tariffs and warning of job losses and factory closures, Gandhi squarely held Prime Minister Narendra Modi accountable. He insisted the economy is in dire straits, a phrase he has used repeatedly in recent months. The BJP hit back sharply, rejecting the claims and describing the textile and garment sector as resilient and expanding. They accused Gandhi of spreading negativity even as exports grow.
Shut down textile industry और garment industry नहीं हुआ है. Shut down आपका दिमाग हो गया है. जो भारत के प्रति आप जहर उगलते हैं. कौन सा shut down हो गया, कौन सा export गिरा, जो देश में भरम फैला रहे हैं.
This is not the first time Gandhi has used the dead economy line. In 2025, he echoed former US President Donald Trump's dead economy jibe, originally made on his social media platform, Truth Social. He even agreed with the characterization, a move that sparked controversy within his own party.
Yes, he's right. I mean, everybody knows this, except the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister. Everybody knows that the Indian economy is a dead economy. I'm glad that President Trump has stated a fact. आपको ये मालूम नहीं है कि इंडियन इकोनॉमी डेड इकोनॉमी है? पूरी दुनिया जानती है कि इंडियन इकोनॉमी इज अ डेड इकोनॉमी और बीजेपी ने इकोनॉमी को खत्म कर दिया है.
Trump has written that India and Russia could take their dead economies down together, criticizing trade barriers and tariff levels. Gandhi used this to argue that New Delhi must address deeper economic challenges. The renewed barbs highlight how economic performance has become a central battleground in national politics, with both sides trading sharp jabs over jobs, growth and global trade. Bureau Report, India Today.
So is India's economy a dead economy? Rahul Gandhi suggests it is. But we've been in the last 1 week at the World Economic Forum in Davos. So obviously had a chance to speak to some of the top economists and experts on India's growth story. Do they believe that India is a dead economy? Do they believe India is growing at the right pace? Listen to what the experts have to say.
The data that is being thrown by the government lacks transparency, and therefore should we go by the headline GDP numbers or actually try and break it down into specific sectors?
So the grades are an absolute measure, not a relative measure. So my previous point was saying that most emerging markets find themselves in that bracket because they don't have the national statistics being done the way it can be done. That requires investment, and actually the IMF is working together with the Indian Statistics Office to improve on this kind of data collection. And there's an important round that's being done right now in terms of rebasing, which will help improve the quality of the statistics.
Because again, one of the concerns is how do you get private investment back on track in India? If India has got to go to the next level, despite all the incentives the government has given, private investment has been sluggish. It's been largely state-driven capital investment. Do you believe that's where the ease of doing business, of ensuring that there's a growing business confidence needs to be restored? Also a climate free of fear, if I may call it that, that businessmen need to believe that they will not be unfairly penalized for actions they take.
I do believe that the complications in terms of being able to do business, all of the areas where I said reforms were needed, including on land, are holding back private investment. And indeed, you want to be in a predictable environment when it comes to regulations, when it comes to government policies, and sometimes, you know, that has not been as predictable as it should be.
So global growth
projected at 3.2% for the year that was.
The year that was.
the year
Yes.
that was
Is 3.2. Many believe it's going to be 2.3 for the year that goes ahead. Are you?
3.3 for the year.
Do you believe that 26, 27 will be will maintain 3.3%, or do you see a further slowing down?
Given what we know, I would say 3.3 is possible because for a lot of economies of the world, they're going to benefit from the rate cutting cycle, including in India, where interest rates have come down. There is fiscal stimulus in several countries that's coming in, including in the US, Germany, China. All of those work in favor of being able to maintain growth, including in terms of the AI spending space. But, you know, the risks are what we might see hear from the speech very soon. That could happen in about a half an hour from now, and whether we have another big eruption of tariff and trade wars across the major nations of the world, whether there's a trigger of inflation, because the risk, I don't think that's being priced into markets right now, is that inflation could be higher in the US than what's being expected, in which case the Fed would have to raise interest rates, and nobody's really expecting that.
So where does India then fit into this? We are one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing economy, large economy in the world at the moment. How should India deal with the Donald Trump? Just shut off the noise? Is that possible at all, given the fact that we now don't even know whether a trade deal will happen with the United States? How should India deal with this face of Donald Trump 2.0?
Look, at the broad macro level, what India should recognize is time is on its side. India has been doing extremely impressively economically, and this is basically, at this point, is fair to say, is a 25-year story. India has been progressing. If you look at the numbers under the Manmohan Singh government and the Narendra Modi government, they're actually roughly the same. Per capita GDP growth is about the same. And what's important now is there is a certain critical mass that has been reached. And 20 years of growth means in year 18, 19, 20, for example, the government has revenues of really substantial size. So you see that in the infrastructure build out. And Modi has been a very good manager of the economy in most ways. So I think all of that, just keep doing, focus on modernizing the economy, modernizing the society. India has a huge advantage. Most of its economy is domestic economy. Most of its economy is a consumption-based economy. Most people don't realize this is very rare. India and the US actually, I think, and Indonesia are the only countries where consumption as a share of GDP is over 60%. In China, I think it's 30, 35%. So all those countries rely on exports to fuel their economy. India doesn't. India relies on internal consumption. Now, you do want exports because they are high value, they support high-paying jobs, they take you to the frontiers of technology. So continue trying to move in that direction as much as you can. The iPhone story in India is a remarkable story, from zero to now supplying 45% of America's smartphones. Continue along those lines. Continue along, EV lines. On the foreign policy side, have patience. Trump is volatile. Trump is idiosyncratic. And, to the extent you can, as I've often said, manage him. Try to humor him. Try to find, if the guy likes big fancy state dinners, throw him a big fancy state dinner at Rashtrapati Bhavan, which, by the way, is 4 times the size of Buckingham Palace. And, well, they had a few hundred horses out there. India could have a few thousand elephants. You could have the Maharajas and Maharanis, If the government is lacking any initiative or imagination, I would call the Ambanis and ask them how to throw a nice party that will impress the world. Play along with that, because he clearly, as I say, he is
a narcissist,
and he likes being the king. So treat him like that. And if you can get a good trade deal out of it, great. But mostly have the patience to know that you're not going to die one way. This is not a make or break for India. It's not going to kill India. But don't give up the courtship, because honestly, India needs the deal more than America does. The Indian economy has almost no impact on America. It's a pimple on the giant. But America does have an impact, because America is going to be the force that helps India move up the value chain in terms of technology, in terms of economy, in terms of the kind of industries. India should be aspiring to be at the frontier of technology, not just doing cheap labor stuff. And to do that, you need a partnership with America.
How should India see itself as we go ahead to 2026? What do you see India's immediate 12-month timeline? I'm not even looking beyond 12 months.
As you said at the beginning, India is a middle power. It's very important. It's stable. And the fact that India has leadership that is more consolidated and popular than leadership in almost any other democracy around the world, only Mexico really has similarity among larger countries, means that India is capable of pushing back in ways that other countries are not. That helps India. Consistent leadership over time is something that is lacking in the world today. India looks very stable. It's a great growth story. But still, the Americans and the Chinese are dominating most of the conversations. And when you talk to the big players here, who are like allocating capital all over the world, and they say, we don't trust the United States so much anymore, what are they talking about? Reallocating to China, because China has the market size and China has the technology. India is not in that conversation at this point.
I'll bring in Siddharth Zarabi, who's joining us from Davos. Siddharth, for the last 1 week, has been getting us a slew of exclusive conversations with these top economists. Siddharth, you've been speaking with these global leaders, these economists, many of whom are praising, and we've just heard a sample of those, they're praising India's economic performance. And yet, here, Rahul Gandhi has again revived his dead economy taunt. How do you read that contrast? But most importantly, to you, Siddharth, where does the reality lie?
Well, very clearly it is disconnected from the data and the perception around the Indian economy. We've been here at Davos for 5 days. The Indian presence amongst the largest from any country in the world, and let me also tell you that this is one of the highest turnouts that Davos has witnessed in recent times, primarily on account of the geopolitical background, including what President Trump has been up to. His session here was an absolutely jam-packed session, as we all know. As far as the Indian economy goes, we've spoken to dozens of voices, not just Indian voices, who you could call cheerleaders for the Indian economy, but global voices, noted economists like Geeta Gopinath, a host of foreign policy analysts. Not a single person says anything of the kind that seems to have been alleged in this remark that you cited. In fact, there is expectation that the Indian economy could do even better. Let me just give you 2 instances for that. One, the fact that 2025 was the year of reforms in India, and 2026 promises to perhaps be even better. We are literally just days away from the union budget, and we will definitely see certain announcements on that front. The second bit, and Geeta Gopinath, one of the foremost voices in the international economic analysts firmament, made it very clear that the question of India's economy becoming even larger is certain, because even the maths supports that. So it is, I think, pure politics. It is also very clear that as far as Davos is concerned, and as far as the perception towards India is concerned, business has trumped politics in Davos. Leading states, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Assam, a whole host of states and their delegations are going back, having achieved significant conversations with global corporations as well as Indian companies. And I think the results speak for themselves as far as the Indian economy is concerned.
Okay, thank you very much, Siddharth, for joining us, giving your perspective of this big political fight, as you put it, that's playing out. I'll bring in on this broadcast our political panelists as well. We've got R.P. Singh, spokesperson of the BJP, and Anshul Avijit, national spokesperson of the Congress. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for your time. Anshul, I'd like to begin with you on the statement made by Rahul Gandhi. Look, it's one thing to question, Anshul, the tariffs that have been imposed by Trump, the impact of it, which is what Rahul Gandhi has done. But is it an exaggeration then to follow that up by calling India a dead economy?
No, absolutely not. In fact, I think, Mr. Gandhi put it rather mildly. I'm going to go even further. The economy has been systematically destroyed and killed by this government, beginning with demonetization, completely destroyed India's backbone. If you remember, after that, the GDP precipitated to levels that were they came down even further during COVID. Then there was that clunky GST that took 11 years to get a reform. I just heard Siddharth say that 2025 was the year of reform. If you're going to take 7 years to reform a bad law, then you can imagine the pace in which the government is moving. We are absolutely doomed in that case. Then after GST came a lowering of corporate tax. They removed it. They thought it would, somehow unleash animal spirits in private investment. That didn't happen. Then you had COVID, where household savings completely plummeted. You've got decreasing investment in health and education that is seen by the budget year after year. Akshita, go and have a look at it. Please go and have a look at it. And time and again, the macro figures that are emerging are absolutely disturbing. Now, I'll just give you one macro figure. You'll say that the GDP in the Q2 was 8.2%, but the nominal GDP was 8.9%. So the real and nominal GDP are, being technical here, moving in opposite directions. That's a clear disastrous sign. Your wholesale price index is barely nothing, which means there's no demand. There's no private investment. That's one of the questions Rajdeep also asked. Where is the private investment? And mind you, anyone who goes to Davos, you're a large contingent people who it's a capitalist corporate gathering. Do you think anyone is going to say a bad thing? That no, India is doomed. What kind of
why not, Anshul? No,
action are you going to expect? Do you
Come
think
on, these are global economists. They have no skin in the game.
No. There, it's a different. Come on, nobody's obvious there. They won't get visas next time to come to India. Yeah, what are you saying? You know what happened to academics?
Geeta Gopinath would not talk about pollution. She would not be honest and candid about pollution.
Exactly my point. They moderated their replies by saying, no, our policy is fickle. It's got to look at again. The pollution is not there. Rajdeep asked the question about lack of transparency in data, which clearly shows you haven't had a national census in the last 12 years. You just started it now. That means all your data coming in is to 2011. Right? How can you develop economic policies if you don't know the population of your country? And therefore, it's a lack of transparency. It also said, the last gentleman that Rajdeep spoke to said that India is not in the conversation in the global economy. He said China versus America, that you hear, we are completely marginal players. That is seen from the macro data, the FDIs that are coming in. I can go on and on, Akshita. This is my favorite topic. And I can just go on.
Anshul, I will have a follow-up question for you, but let me give a chance to the BJP first to make their opening comments. Mr. R.P. Singh, go ahead. You've heard Anshul Avijit there. Talk about how and why the Congress believes that India is a dead economy. Your response.
Well, Akshita, there's a part in the brain which is called parietal cortex. Well, probably Rahul Gandhi has a problem with that. That's why I see his parietal cortex being dead. That's why he keeps doing and saying what he keeps saying. Indian economy is dead. We are the number 4 economy today in the world, club with Japan. How could we have done that good? We were among the 11th when UPA was there, and we had done much better. But coming to what's happening, our GDP is ongoingly growing from last many quarters, and it still will grow. Just how all the world rating agencies, IMF, World Bank, feels about it. Secondly, almost 25 crore people have been brought out of the poverty line, above the poverty line. This is not my data. It's again World Bank, which has said so, that we have almost 25 crore people who have brought out from the poverty line. And I still remember the welfare schemes, the money spent on welfare schemes, almost 50 lakh crore rupees, which has spent in the last few years, and out of which has reached to the every individual which was targeted with that welfare scheme. Unlike earlier, when it used to be only 15% which used to go and 85% used to be siphoned off, or used to be there was a pilferage of 85%. We remember when we got we came to power, the status of banks were, what was the status of banks? Banks were in shambles. Today, banks are robust and doing well, and also SBI is among the Fortune 500 companies in the world today. Not only that, let's talk about how we have grown on airways, roadways, railways, metro, bridges, rural roads. Well, every year, 11 lakh crore rupees is being spent on infrastructure itself. So these are the parameters for the growth of economy. And also, how can we forget the defense? We used to always procure, almost import 90% of defense equipment.
Sure.
Today, we are producing, give me another second, we are doing almost 70% of the domestic production now in the defense. And how to forget the space technology. We are the cheapest in this satellite launch in the world, and in world where various countries are tying up with us for their satellite launches. So on every parameter, we are doing good. Even on social parameters, we are doing good. As far generation of self-employment, there are schemes of the government which has loan has been given to almost 42 crore people, where self-employment is being generated. So we are in what times when world is in difficult times, and then we are doing much better than various other economies in the world today.
Anshul, you want to respond to that? That, at a time when we've seen a lot of turbulence across the world, there are so many economists who, of course, you're choosing to say it doesn't matter what they have to say, but they are highlighting the fact that India is doing well. And in the face of an unpredictable Trump, God knows what he's going to throw at any country next. In the face of that, the way India has chosen to respond, many experts have chosen to hail. I'll highlight for you what The Economist itself has spoken of. Speaking of Prime Minister Modi's economic pragmatism, they've said this reformist turn deserves praise.
No, Akshita, if you choose to look at the figure that India is, a $4 trillion economy, and, weigh that against our economic progress, then that's highly misleading. It's a complete smokescreen, because you have to look at the per capita GDP. Some people may be making a lot of money that may have skewed figures. Do you know, according to all the inequality reports that are coming in, 1% of the population owns 40% of India's resources. That truly cannot be the barometer to which to judge. No, Mr. R.P. Singh, I respect a lot. He's shown a lot of figures. Let me just respond to them. They're not inaccurate. Can I just respond to him?
Yeah, go ahead.
Able advocate. No, just look at the real figures. Which world are you leading into? Are you leading into a world, into a future where you celebrate a figure like 20? That may go to 8 trillion. It's not going to go beyond that, because the economy is not progressing. There is a cloud of doubt against the GDP figure, which Mr. R.P. Singh also, which is 8.2%, because all your other macroeconomic indicators are terrible. Your FDI, your net FDI, which is capital inflows in India, your net FDIs fell to 96% last year. People are pulling their money out. They're not investing in India. Your PLI scheme, which is supposed to be, Akshita, your flagship scheme, which also Fareed spoke about in that interview. Let me just tell you a bit about it. You spent 2 lakh crores in making mobile sets, which are largely imported from China. You assemble them, and then you send them back and say that you've done a great deed. You spent 2 lakh crores in that investment. The government claims that they have made employment of 12 lakh employment by spending 2 lakh crores. They have claimed that. We don't even know how much employment has gone. This is complete imbalance. This PLI is an absolute disaster. All your economic indicators, by the way, your hunger index, you're 105. Your human development index, you're 140 out of 190.
No, but you're also cherry picking here, Anshul. You're also cherry picking here.
No, I'm looking at the...
You're choosing to ignore the positive side of it to refer to it. What is the definition of a dead economy? What is the definition of a dead economy ultimately?
That there is gross levels of inequity, that few people make a lot of money, and the rest, which is reflected in your, these are macro figures, by the way, reflected in your per capita and all the reports that have come out. Nobody spoke about India's inequity. Did anyone ask that question about, what about your GDP, bhai? What about your global hunger index? What about your human development index? These are also, foreign organizations. When you quote World Bank and say how great India we are doing, you should quote other organizations.
No, so you're quoting World Bank. World Bank. You also quote a Fitch upgrader, GDP, 4th largest economy. None of that matters. You're ignoring all of that.
I'm telling you it doesn't matter, because that money is controlled by, your high frequency indicators. I admit, I'm not disputing what Mr. R.P. Singh is saying. Your high frequency indicators show a wonderful picture. That means rich are getting richer. Companies are making a lot of money. The stock market is going high. Where are they spending their money? They're not putting it in private capital, because that was Raji's question, right? It's everybody's question. They're not. What are they doing? They're deleveraging. That means they're settling off their debts. The books are really robust, and they're making a lot of money. Where is the money going?
Mr. R.P. Singh, your response, please. The Congress saying essentially rich getting richer, poor getting poorer in India.
Well, Akshita, how many bridges, how many flyovers, how many roads? I mean, can you imagine the road infrastructure today? We are one of the best in the world today as far as the road infrastructure goes. Not the highways, the airports has been doubled, the hospitals has been doubled. I mean, all that generates employment. I mean, when you build up road, it generates employment. And also, as I told you, the Prime Minister's self-employment scheme, there's almost 42 crore people who have taken loan, small-scale loan from 50,000 to 5 to 10 lakh rupees. But they are also generating employment. But that is also generating employment. But issue is, I mean, as I said, the man suffers from patrial cortex. I mean, you can't help him because Mr. Rahul Gandhi is a
No,
problem.
no,
He
Mr.
must
RP
see.
Singh, let's stick to data. Let's stick to data and facts, please. Let's stick to data and facts to counter what the Congress has said, what
No,
you
no,
have to
I
say.
told you. I just now told you.
So
Okay,
you've
today
highlighted, okay.
we have. Give me a second. Give me a second. Give me a second.
Yeah, yeah.
More than 16 crore people were given public toilets. I mean, obviously the money would have gone into it. It would have generated employment. I mean, you can build up 16 crore toilets without generating employment. The scheme for housing, more than 4 crore people were given houses last 5 years. I mean, obviously that would have generated employment. I mean, it can't be done in the thin air. So all these segments which are generating employment, they are being overlooked by the my
Okay.
Congress friend.
Okay, okay. You know, ultimately, you can look at the data whichever way you want. You can cherry pick which side of the debate you want to be on and figure out what you really think of India's economy either way. But thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining me, Mr. RP Singh and Anshul Avijit, for your time and for joining us here on To The Point. We leave it to you, the viewer, to decide whether you agree with Rahul Gandhi or not. Is India a dead economy, or when economists say that India is thriving, India's got a great growth story, do you agree with that version? From breaking barriers in space to shaping India's future mission, space icon Sunita Williams spoke exclusively to Preeti Chaudhary on life beyond active space flight, her love for animals, her bond with Kalpana Chawla, and much, much more. Here's a short excerpt from that exclusive interview. You can catch the full conversation with Sunita Williams this weekend.
I just would, want to begin with the fact of you retiring, 27 years. And, before all of this, I want to ask you, how would you introduce yourself to our listeners, to our audiences? That's Captain Sunita Williams had to introduce herself because you're used to very rich introductions wherever you go.
Yeah.
And, and yesterday I read out a full sheet of that. So I'd like you, if you can introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers, what would you say?
Oh, wow. I would say hi. My name is what my mother used to call me, Sunny Williams. I'm a former Navy helicopter pilot and just retired from NASA as a NASA astronaut.
Is that it?
Yeah, I think that's where I would go.
That's where you'd go. I just want to take.
I think other things I would probably say is I used to be a competitive swimmer and I love animals. Those are some of the key characteristics about me.
I just would want to add that the kind of records that you've made, 27 years in service with the NASA. And I want to read this out because 3 missions to the International Space Station, 608 days in space, 9 spacewalks, over 62 hours in open space, the most by any woman in history, and also running a marathon, which is the Boston Marathon in space. And there's so much more. When you close this chapter, and as you retire today, as you hang up your astronaut suit, Captain Williams, I want you to take a minute to possibly reflect on what this journey really was. Also, is there serendipity in it that the announcement of your retirement is coming when you're in India because your origin, Indian origin, and most of us back home feel that we have a bit of, stakeholder in your life and career and how it's panned out.
Wow. I'm excited about retirement for one thing because I feel like it was a good time to leave. The chapter that I lived in for NASA, it was building and working on the International Space Station, and we're coming to the next chapter for NASA. And the next chapter is going back to the moon. All the work that we've done on the International Space Station, I think, is helping us inform our decisions as we make new spacecraft think about sustainably living on the moon and how we're going to maybe build a place where people could be there on the moon for a long period of time, all of the data that we have gathered over the last, for the space station, 25 plus years, and that includes all the buildings, that's of my whole career, will help inform that next generation of explorers and exploration.
I love that video when you came in and it was homecoming and your two dogs.
Oh, I
Your
know.
God, that was so cute.
They're
Is
awesome.
that the reason why you have those paw print tattoos on your
Well, it was
program?
funny, like you mentioned in the beginning, how would I describe myself? That's sort of why I would say an animal lover. Like that definitely came from, my mother's side of my family a little bit more, but my father really liked our pets as well later in life. And so, I don't know. I've always loved watching animals. I think they're really genuine. They're really pure. They don't have all the distractions, the mess that us humans do, and the pain that we go through by just in our own listening to our own heads, like you were talking about. And I think I value watching them. I value taking lessons learned from them. And that pure joy is something that we have inside of us too. We just sort of suppress it a little
The
bit.
paw print tattoos that you have, are they your dogs?
This was a Jack Russell Terrier that I had I got him in 2001 and I had him until 2017. So he was my old boy, but went through a lot with me as I was training and getting ready to go to space. He traveled with me to Russia when I was training for my second space flight. So he was my little buddy. Yeah.
Captain Williams, it's a personal question and you can choose not to answer it. But the last time you were here, there was a lot of conversation about you wanting to adopt an Indian girl. Your sister had spoken about it and it seemed that there was interest. Um, um, why didn't you go through with it, or was it something that you battled with in your head? Because the press seemed to suggest that you wanted to adopt a young girl from India.
Well, my sister did adopt two children from India.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. So, we all had talked about it at different times. My life was a little bit complicated. Both my husband and I were professionals that moved around quite a bit, and I would say, unfortunately, we didn't have children. And I think my biggest goal in life is try to be a positive impact on kids. Probably one of the reasons I love coming and talking to kids. And for me, it really wasn't a feasible idea just because my schedule was so crazy. And I really value my parents. My husband really valued his parents as well. And I think two parents in the household with children is a really good idea just to provide a really awesome role models.
You're somebody who speaks all the time in all your interviews. You have spoken about team, about coming in together, making things happen. And something which a lot of us teared up on in India was the hug that you gave 2 days ago to Kalpana Chawla's mother.
Yeah.
And after that, she spoke to the press and she says in Hindi, in chaste Punjabi also,
yeah.
she says, वो तो 3 महीने मेरे साथ रह के गई थी. That when Kalpana Chawla died in that tragic crash, on board in 2003, that you went and stayed with her family for 3 months. And she spoke about Sunita used to come at 9 in the morning and leave at 10 at night. She's like my daughter. Is it standing up for a friend, being a team player? What was it?
Oh, that's what a compliment. She's amazing. So their whole family is amazing, and then a very, very, of course, unexpected and tough time, right? So, just how to try and help people make sense out of the whole situation. Of course, she hadn't lived in India for quite some time, and I was lucky enough to be Kalpana's friend, and so just to share stories about her in the United States and hear stories about her in her lifetime in India. We just spent a lot of time together, and I think it was a little cathartic to just reminisce and talk about her and just relive her life because it was absolutely a life worth living, and what she was represented and what she wanted in space is something that we in our office absolutely felt like we had to continue along with the rest of the Columbia crew. We weren't going to say like, okay, we're done. We're not flying anymore. We're going to explore in their honor. That's why they were flying in space. All of them were explorers, and we just wanted to continue that. So sharing that ideas, because that is a little bit different than a mother and a daughter having a conversation, but sharing, her perspectives and how the astronaut office wanted to continue their legacy, I think was really important. So I wanted to spend the time with them to make sure they understood that. And for me, it was good just to get to know them. They're just an amazing family. And I'm still in touch with a lot of them. So it's really great.
They have the fondest thing to say, both her sister and her mother, about you. But Captain Williams, speaking about the hair, you had quite a few good hair days.
Yes.
In space, didn't you? Something which the President of the United States also noticed.
Yes. The lady with the crazy hair, I think something like that.
Yeah, the lady with the crazy hair, we are bringing you back.
It was nice.
So, is it a reason that you don't tie your hair, or is it just that you want to wear your hair high that day?
No, there's, it's an enclosed environment. I never even asked the question whether or not I could or could not. I didn't even go there because that would cause a lot of people to have to do a lot of work. It's an enclosed environment. There's chemicals with dyeing your hair and stuff like that. I didn't want to cause anybody to have any problems, including myself, in this enclosed environment. So I just let it go.
What scares Captain Sunita Williams? Do you fear anything at all? Because it doesn't seem that you fear anything.
Oh, I'm a normal human being, and there's things, of course, like when I'm hiking, I live out in the wilderness, and when I'm hiking, yeah, I'm conscientious of I'm in somebody else's house. There's wild animals, so I'm in their house. I have to be respectful. I wouldn't say I was necessarily scared, but I am conscientious and aware of the wild animals that are out there, right, and respectful of them. So that's one thing. I don't know what else I'm afraid of. For a long time, I was afraid of when it's too dark, so, when I was a kid, and I still have that a little bit. It's always nice to be home with another person versus by yourself when you're alone.
Yeah.
You always listen to the cracks and the noises in your house or in your spacecraft or whatever, if you're alone or by yourself at some period of time. So it's always nice to have somebody else around that's a little more comforting. I wouldn't necessarily say I was super scared, but it's uncomfortable.
Have you watched Interstellar?
I've watched part of it. It's a long movie.
Yes.
So I haven't watched the whole thing. So I do need to go back and watch it because it's been recommended a number of times to me. Yeah.
With whatever little bit you watch, did you see any similarities at all?
Yes. There's problems, and you handle them piece by piece by piece, and there's a human aspect of that also, right? So I think we want to maintain our relationships with people, and you don't want to explode or have get aggravated and stuff, because that doesn't really help solve the problem.
We wish you well. We wish you good health, and we hope to see you back in India. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much.
There's a reason Kashmir is known as heaven on earth. With snowfall, the valley is absolutely stunning, pristine. But beneath that also, let's highlight the disruption. Flights grounded, blocked roads, and people struggling. As normal life has been disrupted, here's a special report.
Winter tightened its grip across North India once again, as fresh snowfall blanketed large parts of Jammu and Kashmir and Himachal Pradesh. In Kashmir, snowfall quickly resulted in flight delays and road closures. Operations at the Srinagar airport were hit hard as snowfall forced the cancellation of at least 26 flights. Airport authorities said snow clearance operations were underway on the runway, but airlines cautioned passengers to brace for delays and extended wait times as conditions continued to pose challenges. The mercury dipped and roads turned treacherous across the valley. Higher reaches bore the brunt of the snowfall, prompting the closure of several key mountain roads. Authorities have ordered the closure of schools in several areas of Kashmir as a precautionary measure, citing safety concerns amid freezing temperatures and slippery roads.
कश्मीर के बालाई इलाकों के साथ-साथ मैदानी इलाकों में भारी हिमपात ने अपनी लपेट में पूरी वादी को ले चुका है। बड़गाम हो या कोई भी जिला हो तो हर तरफ बर्फ ही बर्फ दिखाई दे रहा है। कल रात जब लोग सोए तो सुबह हैरान हुए जब पूरी वादी को सफेद चादर से लिपटा हुआ देखा।
The winter spell, however, was not without its scenic moments. Tourist hotspot Gulmarg recorded 20 and 24 inches of fresh snow, transforming the meadow resort into a pristine white expanse. Meanwhile, Shimla woke up to its first snowfall of the season. The fresh snowfall across Jammu and Kashmir and Himachal Pradesh is part of a broader winter system affecting large swaths of North India.
शिमला अपने जिस प्राकृतिक सौंदर्य के लिए मशहूर है, आज वो मौसम बनता है और मौसम विभाग की तरफ से पहले ही जिस तरह से भविष्यवाणी की गई थी कि हिमाचल प्रदेश के लगभग जो मध्यवर्ती और ऊंचाई वाले इलाकों में है, यहाँ पर बर्फबारी हो सकती है। तो आज सुबह ही जिस तरह से बर्फबारी जो है वो मध्यवर्ती और ऊंचाई वाले इलाकों में देखने के लिए मिल रही है।
As cold intensifies, officials in Jammu and Kashmir and Himachal are racing against time, clearing roads and restoring connectivity. Bureau Report, India Today.